Your overhead story channel. Enjoy.
It started with something as harmless as needing to print a few PDFs. Sunday morning, overcast sky, windows cracked open, the house humming with that slow, quiet rhythm it only found when Emily wasn't home. She'd left earlier, said she was going to meet Chloe for brunch. No red flags there. Chloe had been her friend since grad school. Someone I liked, someone who liked me. And Emily had sounded normal enough. She even made a joke about needing to decompress from reality before the work week. Fine. I made my coffee, grabbed my laptop bag from the table, and settled in to print some contracts. It was routine. A dozen clicks and I'd be done. The laptop we shared was hers originally, an older MacBook Air that had survived college, grad school, and our move to Seattle. These days, we both used it here and there. Grocery lists, vacation planning, the occasional spreadsheet. I didn't pry, didn't snoop. Never had a reason to. Until now. I was looking through recent files, trying to locate a folder with scanned invoices, when I noticed something odd. A file near the top titled Cafe JPG. It wasn't mine. I clicked it almost by accident. The image opened in full screen. Emily, sitting at a rustic-looking table in a softly lit cafe I didn't recognize. Brick walls, string lights, indoor plants hanging in macrame holders. She was smiling, slightly turned toward someone just outside of the camera's direct view. Except it wasn't outside the frame entirely. He was there too. Some man I didn't know with close-cropped brown hair, a 5 o'clock shadow, and a dark wool coat. His hand was on hers, not gripping it, just resting gently, fingertips overlapping, like it had been there for a while. Emily was wearing that beige trench coat, the one I'd asked about just a few days ago. She had said it was at the dry cleaners. But there it was, sleeves rolled at the wrist like she always did. And in the reflection of the window behind her, barely visible but unmistakable, I saw something else. The crescent moon necklace. The same one she always took off before going out with friends. Not once had she worn it to girls' nights or brunches or yoga meetups. Too sentimental, she'd once said. Makes me feel weird wearing it out. I don't know why. But she was wearing it that day, smiling in someone else's direction, holding hands with someone whose name I didn't know, in a coat that supposedly wasn't even in her possession. I didn't move for a long time, just stared. It wasn't an obvious affair *T. They weren't kissing. Nothing scandalous. In fact, anyone else might have believed her if she said it was a coincidence, a casual meetup, an innocent photo. But I knew her, and I knew that nothing about this was casual. It wasn't just what was in the frame, it was what wasn't. The story around it, the timing, the expression on her face. A softness that hadn't been aimed at me in months. Still, I didn't want to spiral. I took a screenshot *T. Not to be sneaky, just to have it on hand, and I waited. Emily came home an hour later. I was in the living room, pretending to read something, but mostly listening to the click of her boots on the hardwood. She walked in like everything was normal. Coat slung over her arm. Not the beige one, for the record, and sunglasses perched in her hair. She smiled, said brunch was great. They had this new grapefruit mimosa she swore I'd love. Want to see a weird file I found on the laptop? I asked casually. She paused. What kind of weird? I turned the screen toward her. She blinked at it. Just once. Then a soft exhale. Oh, that's from last weekend. Where? Some cafe downtown. I ran into Connor. You remember Connor, from college? I didn't. We were just catching up. Totally random. Julia took the photo. You remember Julia, right? The one who always carried that old Nikon film camera. That name, at least, was familiar. Julia had been a bridesmaid in our wedding. The story fit. Barely. She looked so at ease. Standing there, talking, brushing her hair behind her ear like none of this was odd. The explanation was smooth. Quick. Like it had been rehearsed. I nodded. Closed the laptop. Didn't push. But something about her tone stayed with me. Something polished. She had a way of answering questions she didn't want to be asked. Deflect. Pivot. Charm. I'd seen it at parties, at work events, even once with a barista who accidentally charged her for an extra espresso sh*t. It was effective, and that made it worse. For the rest of the day, I went about things as usual. Made lunch, answered emails, read a few chapters of a book I'd been meaning to finish. But everything felt slightly off, as though someone had moved the furniture half an inch to the left. Nothing was broken exactly, just crooked. She didn't bring the photo up again, didn't explain further. And by dinner time, she was humming along to a playlist in the kitchen like the moment had never happened. But my mind was already spiraling. I began to replay other recent moments, subtle changes. The sudden morning jogs, ones she never used to take. A new bottle of perfume that appeared on our dresser 2 weeks ago, one she claimed was a birthday gift from a coworker. The extra time spent getting ready to go see Chloe, even for casual plans. And then there was the bracelet, a birthday gift I'd given her years ago, one she used to wear all the time. I found it in the trash a few weeks back, broken in two. I'd asked her about it, and she shrugged, said it snapped when she was pulling on her jacket. But something about the way she'd said it had felt too detached, like she didn't care it was gone. At the time, I'd told myself not to read into it. Now I wasn't so sure. That night, while she brushed her teeth in the bathroom, I opened the laptop again and stared at the photo. I zoomed in on the man's face. There was something familiar about him. Not someone I knew, but someone I might have seen. A wedding guest? A coworker's partner? And then something else clicked. The reflection of the cafe window showed more than just her necklace. It showed a second coat, his, draped around the back of her chair. Their chairs were too close. Not like strangers. Not even like old friends. There was proximity. Comfort. I tried not to make assumptions. But something in me had shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't heartbreak. Not yet. It was a question that had taken root, the kind that doesn't let you sleep. That burrows deeper the longer you ignore it. Who was Connor? And why had I never heard his name before? I didn't sleep that night. Emily lay beside me, breathing soft and slow, curled toward the window the way she always did. I stared at the ceiling, counting the rotations of the ceiling fan, listening to the quiet creaks of the house. The kind you never notice when your mind's at peace. But mine wasn't. That photo, her expression, that man's hand, the necklace, wasn't going anywhere. It had hooked itself into something deeper than suspicion. It had cracked the surface of a foundation I hadn't realized was already crumbling. And with the crack came echoes. Memories I'd buried. Patterns I'd chosen to explain away. I started going backward. First, New Mexico. 3 years ago, Emily went on a solo trip to Taos. She said she needed space to write. Something about creative solitude and escaping the noise. I encouraged it. She'd always talked about working on her short stories again, and we had the flexibility. She stayed 5 nights. We texted here and there, mostly short updates and the occasional photo of desert sunsets. But there was one day, her third, when she went completely silent. I texted her a few times, just a simple, "Hey, how's it going?" Nothing. I called that night. It rang, then went to voicemail. She didn't respond until nearly 2 p.m. The next day. "Sorry, babe," the text read. "Went on a no-phone hiking tour. Didn't realize we'd be out of range all day. It was incredible." I remember reading that and forcing myself to accept it. Who questions no-phone zones in remote New Mexico? But now that day sat differently. That silence. The weird energy in her voice when she got back. The vague answers about what she'd seen. The photos she shared, just landscapes, none with her in them. She had said she handed her phone to a stranger to take one, but he must have forgotten to press the shutter. I wanted to believe it. I really did. Next came the Friday nights. She used to hate them, said she was too drained after the work week to socialize. But sometime last year that changed. Suddenly she was out more. Drinks with coworkers, she'd say, or karaoke with the girls. Always casual. Always last minute. I never questioned it. But she never invited me even when I hinted. "It's just a work thing," she'd say. "You'd be bored." Or, "You know, it's all just accounting talk." You'd hate it. At the time, I chalked it up to needing her own space. Everyone needs that. But now it felt like more. A careful partitioning of her life. A closed door I hadn't even noticed. Then there was the perfume. A small detail, sure. But that's the thing, these stories are built on small details. For years, Emily used a clean, citrusy scent. Something light, unassuming. Then one day last winter, a new bottle appeared on her nightstand. Heavy, floral, spicy in a way that didn't feel like her. I remember noticing the change. She said a client had gifted it to her. Nice, right? A little much, but it's grown on me. But she only wore it when she went out without me. Never to dinner with my friends. Never to our family gatherings. Only when she left alone. I told myself I was overthinking. Then there were the jogs. Emily wasn't a morning person. For most of our marriage, she avoided mornings like a bad ex. But this spring, she started waking up at 6 a.m. to run. She bought new shoes, tracked her steps, posted 1 or 2 sunrise photos to her story. First, I thought it was great. A healthy habit. She looked happier, energized. But the routes never lined up. Once, I offered to join her on a Saturday. She said she needed headspace. Another time, I asked where she'd gone, and she gave me a street name that didn't exist near our neighborhood. When I pointed that out, she laughed and said, "Oh, I meant Pineview, not Pine Ridge. You know what I meant." I let it slide, because that's what you do, right? You trust. But trust has a shelf life, and the photo had forced me to check the expiration date on mine. Then came the texts. Late-night pings, always from apps. That's what she said. Anyway, that's my fitness tracker reminding me to hydrate. She joked. Or, ugh, another newsletter. I really need to unsubscribe. But I'd seen the look in her eyes when one buzzed at 11:32 p.m. on a Wednesday and she flipped the phone over without checking it. Not annoyed. Not surprised. Just cautious. Still, I told myself it was nothing. I wanted to believe that. Needed to. I started to feel like a detective in my own life. Not even chasing answers, just patterns. Evidence. Threads to pull. Not to accuse. Just to understand. Because things hadn't always been like this. There were years, good years. Mornings she'd sneak out to get my favorite pastries. Nights we'd stay up talking about nothing. Inside jokes, long walks, random dance parties in the kitchen. We were solid. Or at least I thought we were. But maybe that was the problem. I thought we were. And I stopped checking if we still were. Back then, I wouldn't have questioned the broken bracelet. I gave it to her on our 3rd anniversary. Simple, silver, engraved on the inside. Still my favorite story. It meant something. At least it did to me. A few months ago, I found it snapped clean in 2 in the bathroom trash. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. No note. No explanation. When I asked her, she barely looked up from her phone. Oh yeah, that thing. It broke when I took off my jacket. Must have caught on the zipper. I meant to toss it earlier. That was it. No pause. No disappointment. No memory of what it used to mean. Felt symbolic in retrospect. Like it had quietly stopped being part of her. Like I had. But the scariest part wasn't the coat, the perfume, the texts, the necklace. It was the ease. The way she lied, if that's what she was doing. The comfort in it. The smoothness. Like she'd had practice. Like this wasn't her first time explaining something away with a half smile and a convenient name. Connor. Was that even real? Maybe. Maybe not. But I knew this. A part of her life was happening without me. And it wasn't just the absence that hurt. It was the erasure. I wasn't being considered. I wasn't being included. And the more I looked back, the more I realized how long that had been true. I thought about the time I got a promotion last year, how excited I was to tell her. I texted her, called her, waited. Hours went by. When she finally responded, it was a short, "Yay! That's amazing, babe. Sorry, in a meeting all afternoon." That night, she barely asked questions. We ordered takeout, watched a movie. She scrolled through her phone while I opened the champagne I'd bought. It didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like I was alone in my own victory. That kind of loneliness creeps in slowly, disguises itself as routine, as just being tired. But now I was starting to see it for what it was: neglect. Not the malicious kind, the silent kind, the kind that makes you question your own reality. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. I wasn't ready to confront her, not without knowing more. But I knew I couldn't unsee what I'd seen, and I couldn't unknow what I now knew. Emily had drifted. Maybe she was still drifting. And for the first time, I wasn't reaching out to pull her back. I was watching from shore, wondering if she'd ever look back to see I was still standing there. It was Thursday night when I stopped pretending I didn't want proof. Up until then, I told myself I was just observing, quietly logging moments, not judging, not accusing. But the truth was, I was already building a case in my mind. Every excuse she offered, every too casual explanation, every don't wait up layered itself onto the last. I hadn't said anything because I needed to be sure. Emily was good with words. She had a way of making me doubt myself. Her lies, if they were lies, weren't sloppy. They were polished, smooth around the edges, just enough truth to be digestible. But I was done trusting intuition. I needed certainty, so I bought a camera. Not a big, obvious thing, just a little motion-activated one, barely larger than a thumb drive. It looked like a charger. I placed it in the hallway lamp near our front door, angled just enough to catch movement across the living room and stairs. I told myself it was over *LL. Then I reminded myself I had already seen the photo, already felt that twist in my stomach when she'd lied about the coat, the necklace, the man she'd never mentioned before. Friday came. I played it cool. We ate dinner, pasta, wine, soft music in the background. She seemed relaxed, too relaxed, as if whatever weight she carried had already found a place to rest. As if she had compartmentalized me. Midway through the meal, she said, "I have a dinner thing tomorrow. Work people. Shouldn't be late." I stirred my pasta. "Where?" She named a steakhouse we'd been to twice before. Said it was some networking thing her firm was sponsoring. I didn't push. Didn't offer to drop her off. Just nodded and smiled. And that night, while she slept, I rechecked the camera settings. Synced it to a cloud folder. Plugged in a second device in the guest room, angled toward the back patio door. I didn't like who I was becoming, but I liked being in the dark even less. Saturday came. She dressed in a navy blue dress I'd only seen once before, during a gallery opening 2 years back. Elegant but understated. She curled her hair, applied makeup with deliberate care. As she reached for her earrings, I caught a glimpse of her necklace. Not the crescent moon. A different one. A new one. A small gold pendant I'd never seen before. "New jewelry?" I asked casually. She paused. "Oh, yeah. It was on sale. Thought it was cute." No eye contact. No warmth. Just another quick deflection wrapped in sugar. She left around 6:30. I waited. At 7:10, I opened the security app and saw the first notification. Motion detected. The man from the cafe. Same build, same coat. He walked up the steps like he belonged there, glanced around, then rang the bell. The front door opened. Emily let him in. There was no hug, no kiss, just familiarity. She stepped aside, and he walked past her. No hesitation. The hallway camera caught them clearly, her arm brushing his as he moved deeper into the house. She closed the door, locked it, and they both disappeared from view. I sat back in my chair, staring at the footage. There it was. Confirmation. I told myself I'd wait for them to leave, that I didn't want to confront her in the moment. I wasn't sure if it was fear or control, but I stayed frozen, watching as the hours ticked by. I scrolled through the footage in 10-minute increments. The living room lights dimmed. The kitchen stayed lit for a while. 2 wine glasses visible on the counter. Laughter once or twice, muffled through the thin audio. Then the hallway camera lit up again around 9:42. They climbed the stairs. Bedroom light on. And it stayed on. Until after 2 a.m. No motion alerts. Just soft shadows shifting in the hallway once. Maybe twice. Then silence. At 6:17 a.m. The front door opened again. He left. Alone. Emily came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair pulled into a bun, wearing a hoodie and slippers. She made coffee, tossed something into the trash. Then she vanished from view. I waited until Sunday night to return home. I had told her I'd be out of town. Client meeting in Portland. That wasn't a lie. I just shortened the trip. When I stepped through the door, she was in the kitchen, acting surprised but not overly so. "You're home early," she said, moving to hug me. Her tone casual, pleasant, as if nothing had happened. I hugged her back, because I could no longer trust her. But I could absolutely make her trust me. I noticed the scent right away. Not her usual perfume. Not even the new floral one. The third one. Spicier. Masculine. I didn't comment. I just moved through the house, noting the details. The garbage can had been emptied, but I found 2 wine corks behind the recycling bin. One red, one white. We didn't mix wines. Ever. The guest bathroom smelled faintly of cologne and shampoo that didn't belong to me. The towels were different, new, folded, soft. Hers, not mine. On the dresser, I found the crescent moon necklace, resting inside a shallow dish like an artifact, like something that had already served its purpose. The bed had been made, sheets washed, too clean, no creases, no scent, too perfect. But she had missed the smallest thing. One of her earrings, the tiny silver studs she wore on casual days, lay beneath the bed. Just one. I pocketed it. Said nothing. The camera had caught it all. I backed up the footage twice. Once on the cloud. Once on a hard drive I stored in the garage. I didn't rush. Didn't plan anything rash. I wasn't thinking of confrontation. I was thinking of position. Because now I knew everything I needed to know. She wasn't just lying. She was living another life right here inside ours. And the difference between suspicion and truth? Evidence. I had it. There would be no explanations. No gaslighting. No long sighs followed by, "You're overthinking this, Jacob." I had timelines. I had audio. I had her reflection in the cafe window and her shadow under our bedroom light. There was no wiggle room left. She just didn't know it yet. And I wouldn't tell her. Not yet. Because some truths are more powerful when they're quiet. Some truths don't need to be screamed. They just need to be shown. After the footage, I didn't rage. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. What I felt was colder than anger. It was clarity. A silence inside me, humming with purpose. Like something had finally clicked into place. And now that it had, I knew what I had to do. Emily had made her choice. That much was clear. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wasn't interested in apologies or half-truths. I didn't want a confrontation that ended in excuses or tears or another polished lie. I wanted distance, protection. I wanted control. So I began preparing. It started with the simple things: documents, accounts, history. I pulled out our fireproof lockbox from the closet and quietly started scanning the contents into my encrypted drive. Marriage license, property titles, tax returns. I copied everything, digital and paper. I made backups. I organized by year, by value, by vulnerability. I went through our joint accounts, slowly, meticulously. Most of our finances had my name on them, but there were a few shared assets. The checking account we used for bills, the savings for vacations, the brokerage account we hadn't touched in over a year. I began shifting funds, not dramatically but strategically. Little withdrawals. Transfers to solo accounts under my name. Legal. Quiet. Untraceable unless she was watching. She wasn't. Next came the Montana house. My uncle had left it to me years ago. A fixer-upper cabin nestled near Flathead Lake. We used to go there together back when things were still good. She'd once said it felt like nowhere and everywhere at once. I hadn't been there in 2 years, but the title still sat in both our names. So I called my cousin, who worked as a real estate attorney. I asked him to help me set up a trust. A neutral, clean trust under a generic name that would hold the deed. No red flags, no drama. Just a quiet transfer of ownership on a Tuesday afternoon. He didn't ask why. I didn't offer. Within 2 weeks, the house was no longer in our names. It belonged to Lakeshore Evergreen Trust, which meant technically it belonged to me. Then I looked at my business. My consulting firm had always been small, just me and 2 contractors, doing tech systems evaluations for mid-size firms. We'd built a steady client base, good revenue, and Emily had helped here and there with bookkeeping early on. I'd left her name on a few non-binding admin forms, out of habit, out of trust. Not anymore. I dissolved the original LLC and opened a new one. New name, new EIN, new banking, same clients. I forwarded the old domain email to a dummy inbox. Told my clients we were rebranding. No one blinked. To the world, I was still Jacob the consultant. But on paper, I was no longer tied to her financially. Not in name. Not in liability. Not in future. I went further. I changed every password, email, cloud drives, software licenses. I encrypted everything twice. I moved backups to a cold storage drive and locked it in a safe deposit box she didn't know about. And then I dug through the past. Emails. Old voicemails. A refinance application we'd done 3 years ago, back when interest rates were low. On it was her signature, clear and clean. That was all I needed. Using a document I had every legal right to, I authorized the disconnection of our joint financial responsibilities. Not to harm her, not to punish her, just to separate, to unbraid the life we'd tied together strand by strand. I retained a lawyer next, not a flashy one, someone discreet, a soft-spoken man with a calm office and a reputation for asset preservation. He never asked if Emily had cheated. He didn't need to. He looked at the documents, the recordings, the timeline, and said, "You're doing the right thing. Quiet is smart." I nodded. He helped me draft a strategy. Not divorce yet. Not confrontation. Just protection. A roadmap. One clause at a time. We discussed future contingencies, what to do if she tried to move money, sell property, interfere with the business. We set up alerts. I added my father as a silent emergency trustee in case anything happened to me. Just in case. By the end of the 3rd week, I had a folder on my desk labeled Independence. Inside it were passwords, property documents, legal statements, evidence logs, signed letters of ownership transfer, and a notarized letter of intent for separation of assets. If she ever challenged it, the paper trail would bury her in quiet truths. But I wasn't just preparing logistically. I was preparing mentally. I stopped trying to fix things. Stopped initiating conversations. I watched her. She came and went with the same casual ease. Some nights she stayed late at book club. Others she claimed to be out with coworkers. She kissed me on the cheek like always. Laughed at shows we watched. Asked about my day in that same sweet voice that used to make me feel seen. But none of it reached me anymore. Felt rehearsed. Distant. Like I was an actor playing her husband in a play she'd already decided to quit. I started sleeping less. Walking more. At night, I'd stand on the back deck and just stare out into the dark, wondering how many other people lived like this. Trapped in a theater of someone else's indifference. I told no one. Not my friends. Not my parents. Not even my brother. It wasn't shame. It was strategy. Every person I told was a variable. Every word was a crack in the wall I was building. This wasn't revenge. This was architecture. And like any good architect, I wasn't rushing the blueprint. I was measuring twice, cutting once. Because when the time came, I wanted her to be surprised. Not hurt. Not humiliated. Just surprised. Caught in the mirror of what she'd done and realizing, finally, that I'd been watching. That I had always been watching. That the quiet man beside her hadn't missed a single moment. One night, as I walked past our bedroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked. Still. That was the word for it. Not angry. Not sad. Still. Like a lake before a storm. I realized then that I wasn't holding on anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology. Or a change. Or a confession. I was done. Not broken. Not bitter. Just done. And when the time came, she would learn that silence is not weakness. It's preparation. Uncle Henry died in late September. It wasn't unexpected. He'd been sick for a while. But the call still landed like a stone in my chest. He was more than an uncle. He'd practically raised me after my dad passed, taught me how to fix an engine, how to bluff in poker, how to read people by what they didn't say. He left behind no wife, no kids. Just a legacy built on decades of quiet ambition and old-school grit. When his lawyer called to arrange the reading of the will, I didn't hesitate. I booked a flight to Seattle and packed the same way I'd been doing everything lately, deliberately, quietly, and with a plan. Emily wanted to come. She heard me on the phone and stepped into the room with a concerned face. "Of course I should go with you," she said. Henry loved me. She wasn't wrong. He'd always treated her kindly, gave us both generous wedding gifts, and asked about her with genuine interest. But that was before. Still, I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "You should come." It would be her last time walking into a room with that name attached to her. And I wanted her to feel it. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't need to. The truth was going to speak for itself. We flew into Seattle late Friday, checked into a hotel near the legal district. Emily wore black on Saturday morning, tasteful and well-fitted, a pearl earring and a soft wave to her hair. I could almost see the confidence resting on her shoulders like a tailored coat. She looked elegant, controlled, like someone who knew she was about to inherit something and wanted to appear gracious while doing so. As we entered the office building, she took my hand in the elevator. "You doing okay?" she asked, voice soft. I turned to her. "I'm great." The elevator dinged. Room 502 was a quiet legal suite with polished floors, thick blinds, and that faint old paper smell that clings to decades of legal maneuvering. Inside, we found a circle of chairs. Cousins, old business partners, and family friends had already taken their seats. No one spoke much. A few polite nods. The low hum of grief and money and unspoken histories. Emily sat beside me, legs crossed, hands folded neatly in her lap. She was ready. Mr. Elbridge, Henry's longtime attorney, stood at the front of the room. Gray-haired and straight-backed, he looked like someone carved from mahogany and protocol. He waited for silence, then cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. As you know, Henry passed on September 21st after a long and extraordinary life. His final will, signed and notarized in July, is very specific. Today I will read it in full." He read slowly. There were portions about donations to hospitals, a scholarship fund at his alma mater, and modest amounts left to a few former employees. Names were called, small sums allotted, nods exchanged. Then came the section everyone had been waiting for. The remainder of Henry Colburn's estate, including 3 properties, all patent holdings, business interests, and monetary assets, are to be transferred in full to. A pause. My heart didn't race. I already knew. Casey Wells. There was a collective shift in the room. Gasps. Confused looks. Then silence. Casey was my son from a previous marriage. 17. Kind-hearted. Quiet. Had only met Henry a handful of times but had written him letters after each visit. Thanked him for stories. Asked about his time in Korea. Offered to help fix up the Montana house. Emily's jaw clenched. I felt it more than I saw it. She looked at me slowly, blinking like someone surfacing from a dream they weren't ready to leave. "What?" she whispered. Elbridge continued. "Per Mr. Colburn's specific instructions, the entirety of the estate is to pass directly to Casey Wells, held in trust until he reaches the age of 25. Until that time, all decisions regarding the estate are to be managed by his father, Jacob Wells." The air shifted again. A few heads turned my way. Emily did too, eyes wide, lips parted. Her whisper was sharp this time. "What is this?" I didn't answer, because Elbridge wasn't done. "There is one final condition tied to this inheritance," he said, sliding a folder from his briefcase. "It reads as follows. My wealth is to pass not to the one who smiled at me in public, but to the one who proved himself in silence. To the one who saw the truth and did not flinch. To the one who watched and built and acted without cruelty or haste." He paused. "To that end, I have left instructions for the following footage to be played, as proof of intent." Footage. Emily sat up straight. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice tight. What footage? Elbridge gestured to the assistant at the side of the room. A screen was wheeled in. A remote was clicked. The screen lit up. A video began to play. There she was, Emily, opening our front door for the man from the cafe, greeting him with a glance over her shoulder, welcoming him inside. The living room camera, the hallway, then the stairs, the bedroom light flicking on. The timestamp displayed clearly in the corner. Scene after scene followed. Short clips, each one a piece of a story no one could argue with. Her voice, laughing softly. A wine glass clinking against another. A man's jacket hanging on our stair railing. The assistant skipped forward, Elbridge's cue. Now a clip of her family at a holiday dinner, mocking my work, dismissing my job as a glorified laptop wrangler. Her mother making a joke about me being safe but boring. Emily laughing, not defending, just blending in. Another cut. This time, a video of her in our kitchen on a call, telling someone named Connor that he suspects nothing. The room had gone still. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. When the final clip ended, the screen went dark. Elbridge closed the folder. Per Mr. Colburn's request, this footage is now part of the legal record. His intent was clear. All objections to this inheritance must be filed within 5 days. But I'll be frank, he made it airtight. Then it happened. Emily stood up, eyes blazing, and she struck me, open palm, hard, across the face. Gasps erupted. A cousin stood. Someone muttered, "Jesus." Elbridge didn't flinch. He simply adjusted his glasses and said, "I believe that concludes today's reading." I turned back to Emily, my face calm. I had no words left for her. The strike didn't matter. She had already hit something deeper the moment she stopped treating me like I mattered. As people filed out, the assistant handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter from Henry. Just one line. When it's time to end a story, do it with the truth. Then let the silence speak. Emily stood frozen, shaking, mouth twitching like she wanted to scream, but didn't know which words would matter anymore. I walked past her. She didn't follow. Emily didn't speak to me for days after the will reading. But silence couldn't stop the unraveling. The lawyer's office sent her notice of a $27,000 loan. Money I had covered for her mother's cosmetic surgeries, now marked for repayment. Her brother's failed startup, funded through our joint account, had been classified under a clause allowing full recovery.